the story of the girl who got lost at school and ended up in a very strange and sinister class. At the end of the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Let's get into the video. My life was marked by an intriguing experience I had when I was a teenager. I often find myself reflecting on that day. At the time, no one believed my story, so I've decided to share it now so everyone can hear it. It all started when I was 14 years old, and my family moved to a new city due to a job offer my father received. We sold our house and rented an apartment in our new city. Since the move happened during the summer, it was easy to start at the new school. On the first day of school, I was nervous as I walked from our building to the school. It was quite close, but I didn't know anyone and was worried about having to make new friends on my own. I took my schedule with trembling hands and checked what my first class would be, math in room 104. I looked at the small school map they gave me but couldn't locate my classroom number. With no staff around to ask for help, I started to panic. Where should I go now? I observed the layout of the building and noticed there was a section to the right with several classrooms, but no numbers. On the left, the room numbers ranged from 300 to 310, and in the center, the rooms were numbered from 200 to 230. I decided that my room 104 must be on the right. I walked down long, silent corridors, as most of the students who weren't new had already reached their classrooms. In hindsight, I should have looked for the help desk, but shyness prevented me. I followed the building layout, and at the end of a strange, silent corridor, I found double wooden doors that didn't open when I pushed them. It seemed wrong, as if that part of the building wasn't accessible. I forced the door with my shoulder, and it opened with a creak. I realized I had broken the rusty locks. Panic set in for having caused damage on my first day, and I was about to run away and seek help to find my classroom. The corridor ahead was dark and dusty, the open lockers and a musty smell. When I turned around, I noticed numbers painted on the window of the doors. Closest number was 100. I reviewed my schedule and confirmed that room 104 was along that corridor. I started walking, passing room 100 empty, room 101 empty, room 102 empty except for a plastic skeleton hanging in the corner, which gave me chills. When I reached room 103, it was also empty. I heard a man's voice coming from the room opposite room 104. I looked through the window. The room was full, but it wasn't what I expected. There was a teacher in a brown suit and a blue bow tie, and students at old wooden desks focused on the teacher. The environment looked old-fashioned, like a classroom from an old movie. The teacher was next to a dusty blackboard. Despite the strangeness, I knocked on the door. Teacher didn't notice, so I opened the door and went in. The students and the teacher remained oblivious to my presence. I timidly apologized for being late and explained that I had gotten lost. I sat in the only available seat, feeling embarrassed for having interrupted the class. The lesson started casually. Mr. Tor began writing equations on the board and asked the students to solve them. The class seemed normal, except for the fact that calculators weren't used. Whenever I raised my hand, the teacher ignored me and chose another student to solve the problems. The class ended after what felt like an eternity. I was exhausted and frustrated. When I left the room, I realized the school day was over. I decided that this school was not for me and walked slowly home, reflecting on the day. When I got home, I found my mother on the phone with a worried expression. She looked at me with a mix of anger and confusion and asked the person on the other end of the line to wait. Then she accused me of skipping school. There was a confusion, and I explained that I had been in Mr. Tor's class in room 104 all day. I must have missed the register when I arrived late. My mother paused and told the school my story. Her expression changed to concern, and she hung up. The school informed her that Mr. Tor hadn't worked there for 38 years, and that room 104 was part of an abandoned section of the school. The mysterious incident had occurred almost 40 years ago. The school thought I was joking. That night, I went online and found old articles about the incident. A whole class and a teacher had disappeared during a morning class and were never found. An exhaustive search was conducted. Without success, they were eventually considered dead. but no trace of them was ever found. An old photo of the classroom showed exactly room 104. An obituary contained tributes and photos of the missing people, and I recognized Mr. Tor and the students with whom I spent the day. My heart froze, and I felt an intense cold. After that day, I requested to change schools. Now, years later, I'm sharing this story that no one believed at the time. The reason I'm telling it now is that yesterday, I received a letter in the mail. There was no return address. It just appeared in my mailbox. It was an invitation to a reunion of former students signed by my old teacher, Mr. Tor. The invitation was dated for the same day we disappeared.